The special unit landed with its booty in Bastia and deposited it in the monastery of St. Anthony. The 6 watertight, lead-coated treasure chests contained, besides gold ingots, platinum, jewels, and diamonds, originally from the safes of various Tunisian banks.
What's with the sour faces?
Nothing. We searched the whole area around Marion. There where things look really interesting. The aquasets working the entire area parallel to here, nothing.
Stow the sad looks. Tomorrow's another day.
Oh God, it's just so frustrating. But I've got this gut feeling something's down there.
For me, the Rommel treasure is over, finished, dead, and good riddance. No one talks about it anymore. A silly legend.
On en a entendu parler en France, hein?
No idea. We heard about it in France, that's right. And where is it? No idea, but we've heard about it. We don't know where it is for sure, but it's back there by Bastia. I've heard a lot about it. Does it really exist? Oh, the Rommel treasure. So many people have come here hunting for it. 40 years ago, they talked about something like that being near La Marana, this thing of Rommel's. Hard to say. If it ever really existed, it would have been found years ago. Or else, it's so well hidden, it won't be found for another 50 years. The Rommel treasure is an old tall tale, a myth. The Rommel treasure, it means nothing to me, understand?
In September 1943, when the German front on the island of Corsica collapsed, a specially designed suicide squad was supposed to bring the loot from Bastia to the Italian port of La Spezia on a fishing boat. The maneuver failed in the fire of American fighter bombers. The men were forced to sink their treasure hastily. It now lies in a depth of 100 to 200 feet, covered with sand. The hunting ground lies in the Gulf of Bastia, off the Cape of Corsica. Klaus Kepler, a specialist in this kind of recovery operation, has searched for Rommel's treasures.
Vom Rommelschatz habe ich das erste Mal gehört, so in den Anfang 70er Jahre.
I first learned about the Rommel treasure back in the early 70s, 73, 74. You've got to keep in mind we use this equipment professionally. We make deep-sea measurements, ocean floor studies, search after wrecks and things that have gone down.
Dann reizt einem unwillkürlich auch mal einer Story oder einer
Then suddenly some tale grabs hold of you, some legend, and you have the equipment to go after it, the money to invest, and so you finally have the chance to go after something incredibly interesting. And I want to fulfill at least one dream of my youth, utterly fulfill it, and I want to know with absolute certainty, does the treasure lie between Bastia and North Cape or not?
Kepler is the head of a diving and salvage company, a man with years of experience, who was also a great help to the Criminal Investigation Department in their search for a yacht that had sunk in Lake Constance. Was it an accident or was it murder? Kepler has the endurance of a hunter and a gambler alike. The cost of one of these treasure hunts is very high. Bad weather and stormy seas can destroy all hopes and plans. Should that happen, he will have lost his money.
We were first commissioned to look for the treasure by a well-known lawyer. He represented a former SS officer, and they came in my office and for all practical purposes hired me to go salvage a few crates, supposedly ditched off the Corsican coast. At first I nearly died laughing, because they pinpointed a single spot and said it was accurate to within 150 feet.
Da habe ich das erste Mal davon gehört.
That was the first time I'd ever heard of it. And since then, I've hunted after the Rommel treasure regularly.
Der eigentliche General.
Yeah, I know that General Rommel, or Field Marshal Rommel, didn't actually have anything to do with it. That his name gets misused mainly because he led the campaign in Tunisia, the African campaign. And that's where they say the treasure comes from.
Ich zeige euch jetzt haargenau, wo liegt.
Right now, I'm going to show you exactly where it lies. Here. Now we just have to show up and make one dive.
Je m'appelle d'abord Saladini Lucien et je suis maire de ma village où nous sommes. J'ai entendu parler du trésor de Rommel.
My name is Saladini Lucien. I'm the mayor of Macchinaggio. Of course I've heard of the Rommel treasure, like every Corsican.
Pour rejoindre le continent,
When Rommel left Tunisia, his troops crossed Sardinia and Corsica.
et au moment où les troupes allemandes
And after crossing Corsica, they boarded transports.
s'embarquaient à Bastia sous un
The Americans attacked these ships,
violent des
and it's said that the Rommel treasure, whatever it was, got tossed overboard by officers of the German Navy.
trésor de Rommel, dont je ne connais pas ce qu'il comporte, bien sûr, mais aurait été jeté à la mer. Beaucoup de personnes ont
To this
cherché.
day, lots of people have looked for it, but as far as I know, nobody's ever found the thing.
Moi, je pense que c'est vraisemblable que sous le violent bombardement que les Américains ont fait sur
When the Americans attacked Bastia, a great many people were killed,
par le pressé
and I
par
think
les
it's
événements,
possible the crew of a German ship dumped the treasure overboard.
un bateau de guerre allemand, vraisemblablement, ont dû craindre que
They were afraid the Americans would capture the ship and take everyone prisoner.
ce trésor à la mer. Et c'est d'autant plus vrai que
What makes it believable is people come here to dive and look for the treasure.
plonger et chercher parce que un des chercheurs
And one of these divers heard about it in jail from another prisoner who was part of the Corsican evacuation. The man was in jail for some reason or other, and he told about this treasure being tossed overboard.
étant prisonnier en prison quelque part.
Then he came here himself and dove and searched for a long time, but he never found anything, as far as I know.
À une tierce personne qui est ensuite revenue et qui a cherché pendant longtemps, qui a plongé souvent sans jamais rien trouver, tout au moins que je sache.
Former SS Obergruppenführer Walter Kirner is the sole survivor of that special squad on the fishing boat. He now lives in seclusion in Löffingen in the Black Forest.
We had a regular feast there in the kitchens of the San Antonio Monastery, but I never stuck my nose in the buildings. I only heard the crates were supposedly, now I can't swear to this, were supposedly moved from Tripoli to Corsica, then were stored at the monastery for 8-10 weeks, and were supposed to be transported to Berlin without drawing anyone's attention.
The monks of St. Anthony's were eyewitnesses of the dramatic events. When the withdrawal of German troops began on Corsica, the SS brought the treasure chests onto the fishing boat. The abbot, long since laid to rest in the monastery's graveyard, as well as his monks, were afraid the SS would shoot them because they knew too much about the operation. After the war, Abbot Mathieu revealed what had happened. In 1948, Kirner tried to find the treasure chests with the help of a forged passport bearing the name of Peter Fleig. The French police, the Sûreté Nationale, arrested and interrogated him. Kirner did not reveal the position of the sunken treasure.
C'est tout ce que nous pouvons savoir à l'heure actuelle de ce trésor dont on a tant parlé, le trésor de Rommel.
Kampfraum Mittelmeer. Die Insel Korsika wurde laut Wehrmachtbericht vom 5. Oktober befehlsgemäß geräumt. Die deutschen Truppen setzten mit ihren schweren Waffen und allem Gerät auf das Festland über. Die Verbände der Kriegsmarine vollbrachten bei der Räumung Korsikas eine gewaltige Leistung, obwohl nur Kleinschiffsraum eingesetzt werden konnte.
In der Früh sind wir aus Bastia ausgelaufen und dann sind wir dann rausgefahren.
In the morning, we left the port of Bastia and sailed, I'd say, some 3 miles. And then we got to work and hoisted the truck over the stern. Hard work. Back over the so-called trawl drum, where they kept the fishing nets wound.
Laufrolle, wo die großen Fischernetze hochgezogen wurden, haben wir den also zuerst den Wagen.
And we had to unsnag the truck. It got so bound up. Had to undo everything.
Haben wir den Wagen runtergeschmissen.
And then we dumped the truck in the sea, at depths we'd sounded at around 150 feet.
Tiefe ungefähr, und meinte, es wäre eine Tiefe ungefähr von 50 bis 48, 50 Meter, aber das Schiff hat ja nicht geankert und da sind wir.
But the ship wasn't anchored, and so we were always drifting around, you see. Then Macanaggio's harbor got attacked by air, and there was still a German anti-aircraft gun up in the hills, and they shot down a machine, a light bomber, and it crashed in the sea about 250 feet away from our ship.
In die See reingestürzt, ne?
Da ist ein Zacken drauf. Mensch, Klaus, da ist ein Zacken drauf.
You've got something. Wow, Klaus, you've got something. Starboard, 300 feet.
Siehst du was?
See anything? Klaus, do you see anything?
Siehst du was?
An airplane?
Ein Flugzeug.
An airplane.
Wir brauchen die Kamera, sagst du?
You say you need the camera? What?
Gut.
You can see it for sure?
Ja. Okay, Klaus, wir fahren dann.
We'll go back and pick up the camera.
Ich weiß, dass wir, wenn wir hier suchen, ununterbrochen misstrauisch beobachtet werden.
I expect to be watched without interruption whenever we hunt here. Even the Corsican freedom movement is suspicious. Again and again we notice the military launches patrolling the area. The Navy watches our every move. But good God, when such an enormous treasure, let's say, when talk of a treasure starts making the rounds, before you know it, everyone's interested. Then, supposing someone actually finds it, so many groups suddenly come popping out of the woodwork, each with its own claim. Such a legal tangle. Things get preposterous.
Das ist ein ganz schwieriges Eisen, ein ganz heißes Eisen. Tut passbar. Tut mir so. Okay, passbar. Du schaust doch schon scharf da was.
Oui, oui. Merci.
Okay. Ciao, libéré.
Weiter, weiter.
Gut, stopp, einpendeln. Ja, mach die Propeller an. Da ist ein Flügel.
There's a wing, and there's a wing.
Das ist der Bomber sein. Das ist der Bomber. Guck mal, 2 Motoren.
Look here, you can make out 2 motors. Man, that's a sharp picture.
Boys, we've got it. We found it.
Noch ein bisschen höher.
That has to be the bomber.
Das ist eindeutig. Schau mal, die
That's for sure. Look at the wing.
Ja.
Yeah, the motor's broken off. There's a piece lying over there.
Ja. Ja.
That's the bomber. And Fleig said it's near this bay, some 650 yards from the bombed-out house.
That means we're 100% right.
So if the bomber's here, and Fleig said he poked around this bay looking for the bomber but never found it, that would have been 650 yards to around over there. Later we can measure the distances precisely, but we know we're right.
No doubt about it. But then comes the question, with such heavy crates, they could be buried under 6, 8 feet of sand.
No worry there, we've got a sediment analyzer.
US Army Air Corps. English.
Air Corporation G1.
Ja.
Excite.
Excite. 12 Phase, nichts. Capacity 12 Amp. Das
Made in
muss,
USA.
Made in USA.
So it's not only plain that we knew exactly where.
Den Standort genau festzulegen, gibt man natürlich zu viele Geheimnisse.
To determine the position exactly would be giving away too many secrets, but it's safe to say that it lies along the North Cape's east coast. I've no doubt that the treasure's authentic because I'm a realist, and there's far too much reliable evidence. So it's not just me wanting to fulfill some pipe dream of my youth and the enthusiasm of the other crew members that brings us here, but a number of hard facts.
Es sprechen zu viele Fakten dafür. Die wichtigste Fakte ist einmal die
The most important of these are, for instance, a statement by the abbot that the treasure is authentic. Then there's the depositions in the Bundesarchiv to the effect that the gold treasure was brought here by the NS, the SS, and the Nazi Party without the knowledge of the regular army. There's also the fact that the soldiers who accompanied the transport were all murdered in Italy. You have to consider that it cost Fleig a fortune to buy his way out of an SS internment camp, and that he was a complete non-swimmer. But then suddenly he learned how to dive and came back here in '48, risking his life, risking everything, only to land behind bars again. Another important point is the French government's enormous interest in the treasure and so on. There's far too many hard facts. The treasure is for real.
There was one eyewitness of that sinking the crew of the fishing boat knew nothing about. The French diver Louis Borde, who revealed to the press after the war, "In the night of September 17th, 1943, I was with Corsican partisans in the village of Porretta on the Gulf of Bastia. With my field glasses, I could see a ship with no flag in the dawn. I climbed up on a rock to get a better view of the vessel and watched as several men dumped large boxes into the water. When the boat was liberated from the weight of the boxes, it rose out of the waves. Then it lay on the completely calm sea as though lost in an eerie dream. Baud later found out this was Rummel's treasure. He made several attempts to relocate it, but failed. Somewhere under the sand, scanned by the sonic depth finder, lies the reward for your fear. Frogmen from the French Navy have searched for Rummel's treasure, but found only grenades, rusty anchors, and other junk. But an amateur diver named Jean-Napoleon Peretti, 42, a real estate agent, discovered a cave in the summer of 1969, 8.5 fathoms below the surface, where he found lead-coated boxes. They were held together by a steel net. Peretti and his team of divers were unable to budge the heavy boxes, and the steel mesh held them together like a giant spider clinging to its prey. Peretti gave up trying to surface the boxes. He had heard of the mysterious deaths connected with Rummel's treasure, and his life was worth more to him than the gold. No one ever found the cave again. The saddest story of all was the fate of Captain Ludwig Dahl's crew, the special squad who had sunk the treasure in the first place. SS officers had organized the maneuver to divide up Rummel's treasure amongst themselves. They planned to use the money to finance new lives after the war. Now it lay on the ocean floor. The SS accused the 5 men and their commander of mutiny and cowardice in the face of the enemy, and brought them before a court-martial. The sentence, execution by firing squad. As far as the SS was concerned, they knew too much. The only man the SS needed was Obergruppenführer Kirner, who knew the whereabouts of the boxes. After the war, he tried to find them several times, but without any luck.
Ob ich etwas gefunden habe, ist eine sehr direkte Frage.
If I've ever found everything is a very direct question. Let's just say I don't live in financial worry.
Allez, on reprend le riz. Tirez. Très bien. Tirez.
Old Corsicans cling to the superstition that a ghostly hand protects the treasure of the desert fox, and that it will kill anyone who comes near it. Louis Baud, the diver who witnessed the sinking of the treasure through his field glasses, searched for Rummel's treasure in the 1950s. One day, he said, a man has only one partner to work with against the sea: patience.
For in the hours after Mussolini's death, his multi-million-dollar fortune disappeared. It would become known as the Gold of Dongo, l'oro di Dongo, and it was the last mysterious legacy of a cruel dictator. We are setting out on a hunt to track down this legacy, a treasure hunt across Lake Como and into the past. To follow the trail of the missing millions, we must unravel a political puzzle that will take us back more than 5 decades. Italy, 1943. On the evening of July 9th, the Allies land in Sicily, and with each passing week, they drive northward. Italy is soon split in two. The south under the control of the Allies, and the north still occupied by the Germans. Benito Mussolini, who had ruled this land with an iron fist, is deposed by the liberation government in Rome. But Hitler's Germany still has a use for him. In a smart propaganda move, they put Mussolini in charge of a puppet government in northern Italy. A shadow of his former self, Mussolini now rules only half a kingdom. From September 1943 on, his social republic exists for the sole purpose of supporting Hitler's military policy. But as the Western Allies advance, Mussolini knows that the end is coming. On April 25th, 1945, the Allied troops are just south of Milan. Mussolini grasps at every possible straw. He dreams of reactivating his pre-war diplomatic connections with England and writes to Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Imaginary, illusory dreams. The letter is never sent. When his last negotiations with the liberation government in Rome fail, Mussolini can no longer close his eyes to reality. He knows he must flee. The fascists assemble one last time before the prefecture in Milan. Mussolini bids the cheering crowds farewell, then sets off north towards Germany. His escape route will take him from Milan to Lake Como. In the early hours of April 27th, at Como's City Hall, Mussolini begins the final leg of his journey. He does not flee alone. His mistress and his political entourage are with him, escorted by hundreds of German soldiers. With 38 military trucks and a dozen civilian cars with crates full of gold and jewels, they make a highly conspicuous cortege. On the 30-mile route between Como and Dongo, not far from the Swiss border, Mussolini's fate is sealed. The narrow lakeside road leads him straight into the arms of the partisans, Italy's resistance fighters. From the small chapel on the hills above Dongo, the partisans of the 52nd Garibaldi Brigade watch the military convoy approach. Then they leap into action. Setting up a blockade between the villages of Musso and Dongo, they trigger a startling chain of events that the Italians will later recount as the facts of Dongo. When the partisans stop the convoy, they have no idea that they have made such a valuable catch. In fact, it is only after several hours that they recognize Mussolini. Later still, they discover the treasure of gold and jewels, the getaway reserves of the fascists. Vilma Contini is one of the last surviving witnesses of these events.
The convoy reached Dongo on the morning of April 28, 1945, and had come to a halt in the section between Dongo and Muso because the partisans had put some stones and a tree trunk on the road the night before. While all the Italians in the convoy were arrested, at this point their identity was still unknown, a partisan from Dongo, a certain Negri, climbed onto a truck. A German soldier gave him a sign and pointed to a soldier cowering beneath a German army overcoat. The partisan uncovered him and saw that it was Mussolini. He quickly climbed down from the lorry and called another partisan by the name of Guillermo, who then arrested Mussolini. Mussolini was taken, together with all his captured ministers, to the ground floor of the town hall in Dongo.
The names of 31 arrested fascist officials are on the partisans' list. Captive number 30 is the ex-duce, Mussolini. Not only the prisoners are taken to the town hall, a confiscated fortune also lands here. Money, gold, and jewels are all registered with great precision by the partisans. Including the jewelry of Mussolini's mistress, Clara Petacci. "50 years later, the paper trail is still there for us to follow. Detailed lists of gold coins, gold bars, Italian and foreign currency, which the fascists had been taking with them. The hoard also includes 2 sacks of wedding rings, the so-called Fatherland's gold, donated by patriotic Italians to finance Mussolini's early Ethiopian campaign. After the war, it would be calculated that $66 million of fascist government reserves had been spread out in the rooms of the town hall. In short order, the partisans informed the National Liberation Committee, the provisional government of liberated Italy, about the capture of Mussolini and his ministers. And in a matter of hours, their fate will be decided. These will be among the last pictures of them ever taken. On the morning of April 28, 1945, Lieutenant Walter Audizio of the Resistance's military command appears before the town hall of Dongo. In front of the assembled partisans, he carries out the command from Milan: execution. "50 years later, the bullet holes still recall the scene of brutal retribution. But Mussolini and his mistress Clara Petacci are not among those killed in the square. On the night of their arrest, they are taken to another hiding place, a farmhouse in the nearby town of Bonzanigo. The following day, at 4 o'clock, a Fiat 1100 pulls up. They are escorted on their last journey, a journey of only a few hundred yards. Just down the road, before the gate of the neighboring Villa Belmonte, the death sentence is carried out. The two are shot, and the bloody last chapter of Italian fascism draws to an end. The corpses are taken to Milan in a truck, and the next day, on the Piazza Loreto in Milan, thousands of people crowd into the square to see the bodies of Mussolini and his ministers. For many, this is a moment of retribution, a moment to celebrate freedom from 2 decades of dictatorship.
Whom he led to disaster after promising them an empire through 20 strutting and corrupt years.
For Michele Moretti, political commissioner of the 52nd Garibaldi Brigade, this is his finest hour. He and his small troop have brought down the dreaded fascist leader. Moretti and his partisans have spent most of the war in hiding, living high in the mountains around Lake Como in the stone huts above Dongo. They have survived by being elusive, mysterious. But now, in their moment of triumph, they will find themselves at the center of an even greater mystery. Dovilio Copez, who fought alongside of Michele Moretti, remembers him well.
We owe our lives to Moretti. He was not a man of many words, but what he said right. Right in the sense that he taught us to understand what resistance really means. He was the one who made us understand why we were in the mountains. Moretti explained that to us.
Yet Moretti's role is to be a strange and thankless one, for his name will become wrapped up in the curious disappearance of the fascist millions. In the hours after Mussolini's capture, word spreads of the fabulous treasures now at the town hall. But in the confusion, their exact location is already unclear. Italian fascists and German soldiers are trying to buy their freedom.
2 Germans went to the back with me, and there they showed me 33 million lire. I think there was also a case there with jewels, but I'm not quite sure. But one thing I am sure of, the 33 million was there.
Copez is not to be tempted, but others are. The people of Italy are poor and starving in the aftermath of war. A convoy brimming over with valuables is too great an enticement.
Part of what was found was given to the commando, but not all of it. The prevailing attitude at this moment was one of grab what you can.
It is now an open secret that some of the riches which the fascists were carrying made their way into private pockets. How much actually disappeared in this way? This is the central question in the trial of Padua, which opens 12 years later in 1957. During the trial, public interest concentrates on Michele Moretti. He was the one charged with keeping an eye on the gold, the one who brought it out of Dongo. Moretti testifies, "I took the gold to Como and handed it over to the commander at the square. There I met Angelo, who was an important inspector ordered to take the money to the National Liberation Committee in Milan. That's all I know." The trial of Padua fails to solve the mystery of the missing treasure. To the end, the suspicions cast upon Moretti overshadow his whole life. He dies in poverty, a bitter and lonely man. What did happen to the gold? Some believe the Italian Communist Party seized the entire fortune as compensation for financing the resistance struggle. Some of it would have been due them, but certainly not all. Yet there are others who are convinced that the partisans only got their hands on a tiny portion of the money, and that most of it still lies on the bottom of Lake Como. Is this just a small town legend, or do the waters of Como still hide millions of dollars in gold? The trail of history takes us further along the shores of the lake. For when the convoy was halted at Dongo, the partisans did not have enough troops to hold 200 heavily armed German soldiers. And so, while Mussolini was detained, the Nazis continued along this road on their way north, carrying at least part of the treasure with them. This is the path we must follow. A few miles behind Dongo lies the Ponte del Paso. It was here that the partisans halted the Germans again and ordered them to disarm before continuing. As Dovilio Copez remembers, it was a standoff, a bluff.
I made it clear to the Germans that if they went any further, I would blow up the bridge. And that frightened them. They didn't drive over the bridge because they were afraid that the bridge would be blown up. Actually, we couldn't have blown it up because it hadn't been mined.
The situation was volatile. The Germans were nervous. They were trying to flee the country, weighed down with crates of gold and cash, a cargo now too hot to handle. In the confusion at the bridge, the Nazis decided to secretly unload the treasure into the lake. Soon after the war, two fishermen would find over 100 pounds of gold at the mouth of the river Mera, not far from the Ponte del Paso. But how much more remains? The placid surface of Como yields no evidence. But as we set out across the lake, we are part of a great tradition. Treasure hunters have flocked here since the 1950s and gone away empty-handed. The depths of the lake may still hold clues, and if they do, this man will understand them. Emilio Rota. Emilio knows Lake Como. He is a diving instructor who always keeps a wary eye out for Mussolini's treasure when plunging to the depths. Right now, he is taking us to the place where the Nazis sank their crates of gold. So far, Emilio hasn't discovered anything.
We've had a look around on our diving expeditions just for fun, in our spare time, never professionally, but we haven't found anything yet.
Rota does not laugh at our attempt to find secrets, which others may have discovered before us. He too believes in the sunken millions.
Absolutely. If the treasure exists, then it's in the lake. The myth of the treasure is too big. If somebody had found it, then we'd have heard about it.
On our diving expedition, we hope to find traces of the past at the bottom of the lake. If not Mussolini's treasures, then perhaps some guns or sacks, anything that breathes life into history. But the bottom of the lake is murky. We find only mud and algae. According to Emilio Rota, this is why the gold has never been found.
The treasure was hidden where the water is full of algae. There are also several meters of thick sludge in this place. This makes the search very difficult.
And so, once more, we set out to search the bed of the lake. But here, too, the past has slipped out of reach. If there are treasures, then the lake has long since claimed them for its own. In the end, finding the gold will demand more than just 1 or 2 divers. It'll take massive manpower and a full range of high-tech equipment.
Until now, the hunt for the treasure has only taken the form of a leisure time activity. A thorough search has yet.
Until it is, our path will take us back into the mountains that ring Lake Como. There are stories here that have not gone away after 50 years. Mysterious stories, like the ones about the partisans Luigi Canali and his partner Giuseppina Tuisi. The trail leads to these 2 lovers, who were intimately connected with the gold of Dongo. Tuisi was the one who kept the accounts of all the confiscated money. Some said she and Canali were traitors. Others, that they were murdered when they refused to hand over the entire fortune to the Communist Party. Their deaths are still shrouded in mystery. And as for the whereabouts of Mussolini's millions, once housed here at the town hall, nobody will say. But once a year, everyone gathers in Dongo's town square to relive the story of Mussolini's arrest. Once a year, the partisans meet to commemorate their past. They are the last witnesses of a violent time. Some of them were in the famous 52nd Garibaldi Brigade, which celebrated its victory and its capture of Mussolini in the streets of Como at the end of the war. If they are still celebrating today, there is good reason. 77,000 partisans died in the struggle against the fascists, the struggle to make Italy free. On this day, they are remembered for their sacrifice. This is the partisans' final legacy, a legacy more priceless than gold, even 66 millions in gold. Today, times have changed. The festivities are being held in the rooms of the town hall, where 50 years ago, Mussolini's ministers spent their last hours. Have the mysteries of a treasure which caused an international sensation 5 decades ago now faded into the oblivion of history? Or does the occasional fortune hunter still search for the pot of gold? For anyone drinking an espresso on the terrace of the Albergo Dongo, it's hard to imagine that this peaceful seaside resort was once the setting for a tumultuous political thriller. Perhaps the fascists' treasure really did make some people very rich. Perhaps it is still concealed in the depths of Lake Como. Either way, the mystery remains. For successful treasure hunters never talk, and the waters of the lake, they guard their secret.
Alike. The cost of one of these treasure hunts is very high. Bad weather and stormy seas can destroy all hopes and plans. Should that happen, he will have lost his money.
We were first commissioned to look for the treasure by a well-known lawyer. He represented a former SS officer, and they came in my office and for all practical purposes hired me to go salvage a few crates, supposedly ditched off the Corsican coast. At first I nearly died laughing, because they pinpointed a single spot and said it was accurate to within 150 feet. That was the first time I'd ever heard of it, and since then I've hunted after the Rommel treasure regularly. Yeah, I know that General Rommel, Field Marshal Rommel, didn't actually have anything to do with it, that his name gets misused mainly because he led the campaign in Tunisia, the African campaign, and that's where they say the treasure comes from. Right now I'm going to show you exactly where it lies, here. Now we just have to show up and make one dive.
On en a entendu parler en France, hein?
No idea. We heard about it in France, that's right. And where is it? No idea, but we've heard about it. We don't know where it is for sure, but it's back there by Bastia.
Oui, j'en ai entendu beaucoup parler.
I've heard a lot about it. Does it really exist?
Est-ce qu'il existe vraiment ou il n'existe pas?
Oh, the Rommel treasure. So many people have come here hunting for it. 40 years ago, they talked about something like that being near La Marana, this thing of Rommel's.
C'est très difficile.
Hard to say. If it ever really existed, it would have been found years ago. Or else, it's so well hidden, it won't be found for another 50 years.
Dans 50 ans.
The Rommel treasure is an old tall tale, a myth. The Rommel treasure, it means nothing to me, understand?
In September 1943, when the German front on the island of Corsica collapsed, a specially designed suicide squad was supposed to bring the loot from Bastia to the Italian port of La Spezia on a fishing boat. The maneuver failed in the fire of American...
Je m'appelle d'abord Saladini Lucien et je suis maire de Maginage où nous sommes. J'ai entendu parler du trésor de Rommel.
My name is Saladini Lucien. I'm the mayor of Macchinaggio. Of course I've heard of the Rommel treasure, like every Corsican.
Pour rejoindre le continent.
When Rommel left Tunisia, his troops crossed Sardinia and Corsica.
Et au moment où les troupes allemandes
and after crossing Corsica, they boarded transports. The Americans attacked these ships, and it's said that the Rommel treasure, whatever it was, got tossed overboard by officers of the German Navy.
Ce qu'il comporte, bien sûr, mais aurait été jeté.
The special unit landed with its booty in Bastia and deposited it in the monastery of St. Anthony. The 6 watertight, lead-coated treasure chests contained, besides gold ingots, platinum, jewels, and diamonds, originally from the safes of various Tunisian banks.
What's with the sour faces?
Nothing. We searched the whole area around Marion. There where things look really interesting. The aquasets working the entire area parallel to here, nothing.
Stow the sad looks. Tomorrow's another day.
Oh God, it's just so frustrating. But I've got this gut feeling something's down there.
For me, the Rommel treasure is over, finished, dead, and good riddance. No one talks about it anymore. A silly legend.
Fighter bombers. The men were forced to sink their treasure hastily. It now lies in a depth of 100 to 200 feet, covered with sand. The hunting ground lies in the Gulf of Bastia, off the Cape of Corsica. Klaus Kepler, a specialist in this kind of recovery operation, has searched for Rommel's treasures.
Vom Rommelschatz habe ich das erste Mal gehört, so in den Anfang 70er Jahre.
I first learned about the Rommel treasure back in the early 70s, 73, 74. You've got to keep in mind we use this equipment professionally. We make deep-sea measurements, ocean floor studies, search after wrecks and things that have gone down.
Dann reizt einem unwillkürlich auch mal einer Story oder einer
Then suddenly some tale grabs hold of you, some legend, and you have the equipment to go after it, the money to invest, and so you finally have the chance to go after something incredibly interesting. And I want to fulfill at least one dream of my youth, utterly fulfill it, and I want to know with absolute certainty, does the treasure lie between Bastia and North Cape or not?
Kepler is the head of a diving and salvage company, a man with years of experience, who was also a great help to the Criminal Investigation Department in their search for a yacht that had sunk in Lake Constance. Was it an accident or was it murder? Kepler has the endurance of a hunter and a gambler.